Welcome to Buddha Motivation. There's a question that's deeply intriguing. If I'm not my thoughts, then who's thinking them? This isn't just an intellectual exercise, it's a question that cuts to the heart of what it means to be alive, aware, and free from the constant chatter of the mind. From my years of studying the teachings of the Buddha, I've come to realize that this question reveals one of the most fundamental aspects of human existence, the nature of the self. Who are we beyond our thoughts? Are we simply a collection of ideas and judgments that come and go? Or is there something deeper that connects us all to the present moment, something beyond the thinking mind? Today, I invite you to explore this question through the lens of Buddhist wisdom. We'll delve into the idea of dependent origination, mindfulness, and anatta, no self, as well as how understanding these concepts can lead us to greater freedom and peace. This isn't just theoretical knowledge, this is about how we live, breathe, and transform our minds every single day. Let me take you on a journey of discovering who you really are, beyond the noise in your head. Stay with me until the end, and I promise you, this might change how you look at yourself and the world. Chapter 1: The Mystery of Thoughts and Thinking. Have you ever noticed how thoughts arise in your mind without invitation? You might be doing something simple, like washing dishes or walking, and suddenly, a thought about an old memory, a worry about the future, or a judgment about something just appears. You weren't trying to think it. So where does it come from? And, more intriguingly, who is the one actually thinking these thoughts? For many years, I grappled with this. I spent hours meditating, contemplating, and trying to untangle this web of mental chatter. One day, I decided to take a walk, just to clear my mind. But instead of quiet, I found a storm of thoughts, worries about work, memories of past conversations, the feeling of not being good enough. I realized something profound. I wasn't choosing these thoughts, they just came up. It's as if I was merely an observer, watching them unfold, yet still, I identified with them. Buddhism offers a profound explanation for this mystery: dependent origination. This teaching explains that everything, including our thoughts, arises due to causes and conditions. Our thoughts are not random, they arise due to a combination of factors: memories, past experiences, sensory input, and even unconscious patterns we may not even be aware of. Reflecting on this, I often recall a simple exercise I used with students. I asked them to take 10 seconds to try and predict their very next thought. It's an enlightening experience because, as you might have guessed, no one can predict it. This exercise beautifully illustrates the anatta, no self, teaching. There is no permanent thinker behind the thoughts. Thoughts come and go, and the more we try to grasp them, the more elusive they become. This realization is not just a philosophical exercise. It changes how we relate to our minds. For example, when I'm meditating now, I no longer try to stop my thoughts. Instead, I simply observe them, knowing that they are impermanent. The peace that comes from this awareness is like a river gently flowing. It's not about controlling the current, but letting it flow naturally, knowing that the river itself is not me. Chapter 2: The Empty Center, Looking for the Thinker. As humans, we have an innate tendency to search for the thinker behind our thoughts. We feel that there must be a self-aimee behind every mental activity. This is not surprising, as we are conditioned to believe that there is a permanent I in charge of everything we do. But is this really true? Where is this thinker when we search for it deeply? This search for a permanent self controlling our thoughts is, I believe, one of the most fascinating parts of the Buddhist path. I often remind myself of the story the Buddha tells in the Anatta Sutta, where he explains that even the body, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness, all of these so-called aggregates, are not truly me or mine. In my practice, I found that when I searched for the thinker, I didn't find a solid, fixed identity. Instead, what I found was space. Space between my thoughts, space to just be. There is no thinker, only the thought itself, passing like clouds across the vast sky of awareness. This was a profound turning point for me. The more I observed, the more I realized that my sense of I was just a collection of thoughts and feelings, a temporary formation. What Buddhists call Anatta, the absence of a permanent self, became clearer to me with each passing day. It's an uncomfortable realization for many, but in that discomfort, there's also freedom. The self we think we are is not fixed. It is a process, ever-changing. Chapter 3, The Clear Awareness Behind Thinking. Now, this doesn't mean that we're left in an empty void. In fact, there's something even more profound beneath the thinking mind: awareness. Buddhism teaches that behind every thought, there is an awareness that simply observes. This awareness is not another thought. It is not something we create. It is always there, quietly witnessing every thought, feeling, and sensation. I remember a moment during one of my retreats when I felt completely absorbed in my thoughts. I was frustrated because my mind kept wandering. But then, I remembered the Buddha's teachings: don't judge the wandering mind, just observe it. I let go of the judgment and, for the first time, simply noticed my thoughts without attaching meaning to them. There was a subtle shift. I wasn't my thoughts anymore. I was the awareness watching them come and go. This quality of awareness is what Buddhists call sati, or mindfulness. Mindfulness is the act of being present with each moment without judgment, without attachment. When we are mindful, we start to experience life not through the lens of a thinker but through the lens of pure awareness. What struck me in my practice is that the more mindful I became, the more I began to feel a sense of spaciousness in my mind. It was like clearing the clutter from a room and suddenly realizing there was so much more space than I thought. It's in that spaciousness that peace is found. And it's in that awareness that we are truly free. Chapter 4, Living with this understanding. So, how do we integrate this understanding into our everyday lives? It's not about trying to eliminate thoughts or suppress them. It's about changing our relationship with them. We must learn to live with mindfulness, to observe our thoughts without getting swept away by them. The Buddha spoke of yonaso mansikara, or wise attention, paying attention in a way that leads to clarity, rather than confusion. For example, think about the last time you faced a difficult decision. From a Buddhist perspective, the thoughts you had in that moment were mental formations arising based on your previous experiences, intentions, and conditioning. Rather than being lost in the struggle of decision-making, mindfulness allows you to observe your thoughts and feelings without clinging to any particular outcome. A beautiful example of this transformation is the story of Angulimala, a notorious criminal who was transformed by his encounter with the Buddha. Angulimala learned to shift his relationship with his thoughts. Instead of being controlled by them, he began to observe them, and this led him to a path of wisdom and compassion. His story, like many others, shows that even the most deeply rooted mental habits can be transformed. Conclusion. As we conclude, I want to leave you with this important realization: you are not your thoughts. Thoughts come and go, but your awareness remain constant. This understanding doesn't require us to deny our thoughts or push them away. Instead, it invites us to observe them from a place of stillness and clarity. Remember, it's not about stopping the river of thoughts. It's about learning to watch the river flow, without getting swept away by the current. Through mindfulness, we create space between ourselves and our thoughts, and in that space, we find peace. Speech balloon. Share in the comments below, what's one small habit you want to begin today? Don't forget to subscribe to Buddha Motivation and click the bell so you never miss another insight. In the next video, we'll explore how silence can be a powerful response. Until then, breathe deeply, live mindfully, and remember, the present moment is your true home.